One of the things that I have started to find is the longer that this project has gone on, the more ideas I've come up with to improve it, and the more they've started to snowball. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I have a real issue around multitasking, and all that ends up happening is I start about four different things and achieve about 10% of what I want to do with each one as I'm doing it. Um, the briefing style format video that I posted last week, it seemed a good idea when I started it, and then when I was making it, I thought this is probably a little bit too corny, a bit too cheap. And having posted it, it seems to have gone quite well. And the intention of those videos is to segue between an existing story and where the sequel that have come from. Just fill in some blanks, just make it easy to access. Um, I'm not a voice actor. Christ, I'm barely a writer. And it was really, really hard to try and maintain that accent for as long as I did. I think the only way forward with those videos is to try and find some voice talent from somewhere, because I've got about three accents that I can use. I've used two of them already, and potentially find someone else to bounce off, like a back and forth. So it might be that in the future, I put a post out seeing if there's anybody who wants to have a go at a bit of voice work. If anyone can do a convincing German accent or as a German friend, that might be helpful for a segue for an Atlantean sequel. That's all I'm saying. This story is the first time we've stepped outside of World War II, and the first time that we've tried to look at an origin story. Um, and the more I do that, the more I seem to paint myself into a corner or tie myself up in knots. This was always supposed to be a World War II horror channel, but I ended up going down a little bit of a Native American rabbit hole, wormhole, rabbit hole. And the reason I did that was that when we included Johnny Greywolf, the corporal in Malediction, um, had some contact, which I really wasn't expecting, from people just saying, look, we really appreciate how you wrote that character. You didn't make him crazy or exaggerated or stereotypical. We just really like that you've included a Native American character who just gets on with it. So I thought, well, fair enough. Let's go back to him then. If he's popular, let's pad him out a little bit more. Let's do him and his tribe a little bit of justice. Why did I pick the Chinook? Well, two reasons. Firstly, it's a really cool name, and secondly, I'd never heard of them. And whenever I come across something I haven't heard of, I think, oh, I need to go and look at that more. The disadvantage was, having said, oh, I'm going to do a Grey Wolf backstory now. That'll be really easy. I then started looking into Native American culture and found that I was kind of limited by two things. And one was the culture of each tribe, and the other was geography. When I came up with the idea of doing the backstories, the short stories, I always felt that it was going to be about tertiary characters or minor characters on the fringes of what happened later. I didn't want to end up with this idea that you've got this small group of people who've been interacting with or coming across monsters their whole life. It was more about the fact that in the world wars, the scale of them were how broad they were, how they affected whole generations and coming generations moving forward. You might find a lot of references to the Great War in the stories moving forward, and the idea behind that is to show how the Great War scarred a generation and how World War II scarred a generation. I portrayed Grey Wolf as deeply rational and sensible, someone who's aware that people around him have had strange experiences in the past but hasn't had them themselves. So for his backstory, I always wanted to just have him on the edge of those, not have him hunting a Bigfoot. So the initial idea I sketched out was that he, when he was a kid, and an older brother or cousin would be visiting family, they'd come across a desecrated grave site, and then there'd be a hunt for the monster that had caused it. He wouldn't be involved, but he might hear about it further down the line. Now, I am coming to absolutely love Native American folklore. Every tribe has a rogues gallery of complete arsehole monsters, Wendigos, dogmen, skinwalkers. But I wanted to do one I hadn't come across before, one I hadn't researched, and I thought I'd found one. Now, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, but here goes anyway. The Skudagamuch, which is basically the ghost of a magician who refuses to die, comes to life at night, stalks the forest, consuming the living, can turn into a ball of light, and can only be killed by fire. Which sounds cool, right? I'm just about to start this story about how Grey Wolf's brother or cousin is going to chase this ghost witch that's been digging up a grave. And thankfully, I got a little bit of schooling in Native American culture. There is a lovely and really, really supportive patron of the channel called Atsila, and I'm eternally indebted to her because she contacted me when I was talking to her about it and pointed out that that ghost witch actually belongs to the Wabanaki tribe, not the Chinook. Now, to a bloke who lives in a country that's the size of a US state, the idea that a monster might wander from one state to another seemed pretty harmless. And then I looked at the distance between Washington State, where the Chinook live, and Maine, where the Wabanaki live, and I shelved that because it's like the other side of the earth, which is what brought us to the BOQ, or the Skookum, or Bigfoot's nastier and meaner cousin. And I decided that it would work well if I included some of the more supernatural tropes that perhaps people who aren't obsessed with cryptids or Europeans wouldn't know is already associated with the Bigfoot lore. The next issue I had was the Chinook themselves, who seem to be a relatively smaller tribe compared to some of the famous ones, with the least amount of internet available information to hand. I managed to find out that they were fishermen and hunters mainly, rather than warlike soldiers, and they certainly didn't use some of the more exotic weaponry that I'd hoped to work into the script. So when the Christ, how to pronounce this? The axolotl? It's like a mechanism for throwing spears. Yeah, they didn't use that. They just used fishing spears. But I did slip in a gunstock club because they sounded really cool. Anyway, I do hope that what I've created, it's not too corny. I mean, you can't get cornier than the bad guy in Border. But it's not offensive to anybody. I'd love to run it past somebody from the Chinook, find out how entertained or insulted they are, maybe get them on for an interview moving forward. I'm back at my rabbit hole now. You might have noticed that it was Mikey that's popped across from the channel to do the art for this one. As ever, it's amazing. He's amazing. I'm hoping we can work together again moving forward and create some monsters. Don't worry, Sean hasn't had an accident. He hasn't fallen out with me. The artwork for the next couple of episodes is a bit more hard going than normal. You'll understand that when you see it, why it's taken a bit longer. We've had some new ideas about going forward with the channel. Don't worry, he's going to be back with the next episode. As always, keep the feedback coming. It's the first time we've left World War II. If it doesn't fit or it's too different, then feel free to fire a shot across my bows. If it works well, tell me, and I'll crack on doing some more. And on a personal appeal, check us out on Patreon, I always do this. You get all the videos a week early, previews of the art and some of the concept art, and a chance to vote on some of the future episodes. I'm a patron for Bedtime Stories and for Wartime Stories, and I really love the merch and the detail they give. I'm hoping moving forward that's something we can do. If we get enough interest, I think a mug could be a good place to start. Everyone loves mugs. Maybe a fridge magnet. I don't know. Watch this space. Anyway, as always, I am eternally grateful to you guys for supporting us. Thank you again. Keep the feedback coming, and I will see you next time round.